This is not a fun episode to record because this is the very last episode of Culture Boy for 2025. This is not the last episode ever. We got way too much to uncover. We're just getting started. By the way, if this is your first time seeing me, my name's Calvin, the Culture Boy, your friendly neighborhood ex-cult member. I have one dad, 4 moms, and 44 siblings, and I explore cults and culture, and this episode is packed with pieces of both. Let's dive in. Oh, by the way, Candace Owens' official business model has been leaked. I'm going to share all the details. Stay tuned.
Today I'll be spending a day with Calvin, an ex-cult member.
We had somebody on the show who has 44 siblings and 4 moms because he grew up in a polygamous compound.
Welcome back. As a fundamentalist Mormon, having 5 parents and 44 brothers and sisters was the norm for Calvin Wayman. 44 siblings. That's 40 plus 4.
I'm sorry, you have how many siblings?
I have 44 siblings.
You have 44 first siblings. 4 moms.
Uh-huh. Each of my moms had 11 to 13 kids each.
Bro. What?
Here's a sentence you've never heard. I'm the 11th child, and I'm one of the older kids.
I've never heard that sentence. That's fabulous.
And we all grew up in one house.
No, you did not. No, how big is the house?
Should have been bigger. But like...
This is your stand-up routine, right?
All right, let's dive into this. Thank you for coming in and joining me for the very last episode of the year. How's your year been? In fact, I would really want to know. The thing I'm trying to do with this show, by the way, is make it way more back and forth. Sort of like if it was a live stream, but it's not a live stream. So yeah, how was your year? Let me know in the comments. Good, bad, indifferent. I'll get into some of that as well. Of course, I can't cover, and I'm not going to cover all the top stories of this year. I'm going to talk about a couple that have really stood out to me, especially with Trump, Candace Owens, as I mentioned. I also want to tie in some cultiness to this year as well. And I might even, I think I'm going to. There's been sort of a cult hot take, I will say, that I have been considering dropping on Culture Boy. And I think I'm going to do that on this episode. Where to begin? Let's just jump right into Candace Owens. Okay? So, but before we get into the whole Candace Owens stuff, so for anybody that doesn't know, Candace Owens is spouting off all sorts of things. Some people believe her, some people don't, but she's sort of like questioning the Charlie Kirk assassination, the official story, and stuff like that. Some people believe her, some people don't believe her. That's all well and good. I'm going to share my thoughts, and as I mentioned in the intro, I'm going to give something that I found, and that is her official business model. Official in quotes. We'll talk about that. But before we get into Candace Owens, I wanted to sort of see if I could give insight on something that might feel completely left field to Candace Owens. It's going to feel like there is absolutely no connection. And that is Joseph Smith. I want to talk about Joseph Smith for a little bit. Now, many people watching or listening will be like, Joseph Smith? Who's Joseph Smith? I mean, there's a lot of Smiths in America. There's a lot of Joes. Who are we talking about here, Calv? Okay. Joseph Smith is the founder of Mormonism. That's where I come from. Without Joseph Smith, I do not exist. The entire Mormon movement does not exist without this dude. And Joseph Smith is a very controversial figure, obviously, for many reasons, because if anybody is going to be claiming to be a prophet, that's what he did, then people are going to question that. Like, how do we know that's who this guy says he is? And a prophet makes all sorts of claims. So some of the most famous claims that Joseph Smith made is he saw God and Jesus in a grove. This is how Mormonism started. He said when he was 14 years old, God and Jesus came down to him and said, don't join any of the churches. because none of them are true, but you're going to be the one true prophet that restores the gospel. And Mormonism is born from that. Now, there's so much nuance that is missed with this Joseph Smith dude. I might need to do an episode at some point, just deep diving Mormon history. In fact, if you would want to learn and understand about that, if you're curious about Mormonism and how it started, how it formed, especially discussed from the perspective that I think a lot of historians miss, which is the deeper emotional and psychological things at play within Joseph Smith and his people, then let me know, because it's something that I'm fascinated by and I just want to share it. But one thing I just want to bring up with Joseph Smith for this conversation is, of course, he was very controversial because he said things and he made claims. And I mean, one of the claims was that, just boatloads. I saw God, I saw Jesus. They gave me authority to restore the one true church. And I have this book. And this book is called the Book of Mormon. Oh, by the way, my laptop's about to die, so I better plug it in. And I'm going to leave all this in. This is going to be, I'm trying to do more where I'm just talking and keeping it human, because in the world of AI, in the world of fast clips, like I do short form content and stuff like that. But the thing with a podcast and the conversation that it is it should be more real and natural and raw. So I'm not even going to cut out this part of me getting the cord and plugging it in. I'm just going to do it. Let's see. Where's my cord? Ah, it's right here. I don't need to go too far. All right, yeah, let's just plug this in so my laptop can be. So Joseph Smith. Now, Joseph Smith didn't just make claims that were hard to confirm and deny. One of the other things that would happen is he would prophesy something and say, this is what's going to happen. And then it wouldn't happen. Or what he said was going to happen went completely different. So he would say, God is saying that we need to gather in this particular area. This is going to be the place for all Mormons. God told me to create a bank. It's going to be the most successful bank in the world, yada, yada, yada. And bank fails. People lose money. People are pissed. And all that sort of stuff. Now, what does Joseph Smith have anything to do with Candace Owens? Well, some people may or may not like this comparison, but I see connections between the two. I see connections between Candace Owens and Joseph Smith. One of the benefits, I guess, of growing up in a cult, and again, if this is your first time seeing me, I was born fundamentalist Mormon. I'm the 11th child in a massive family, and I was conditioned my entire life, and through curiosity and scaring the fuck out of myself, honestly, by asking questions that I was forbidden to ask, every single aspect of my life was controlled. I figured out the Matrix from within, or figured out that I was on the Truman Show while I was on the Truman Show. I was in the cave, as Plato talks about, and figured out that I was in the cave, and then I left the cave, and now I'm living here in New York City, and, it's been a wild, wild ride. But there's all these little pieces that I cannot ignore anymore. And this will be one of the hot takes I talk about at the end. But there are so many perspectives that I pick up on in culture now, having grown up the way that I grew up. Now, to fully tie the Joseph Smith patterns to the Candace Owens patterns, I'm going to share the official leaked business model of Candace Owens. So here's the official business model. And how did I get the business model? honestly just watched a lot of Candace Owens and her Twitter feeds and saw what she was saying. So I'm actually the source. This is me just, you can disagree with me if you see this, but I found Candace Owens' business model, and it's in 3 steps. And again, since my friend Jaden Jeffs, who is Warren Jeff's son, argues on his channel that, by the way, if you're watching Jaden, one thing he says is he's the prophet. I'm too traumatized to say that. I want you to argue with me. And because I'm just questioning this just like anybody else. So if anything, I don't want you to put me on a pedestal that I found this out. I want you to go check it and see. You're the prophet. I want you to think you're the prophet, not me. Everybody should be the authority in their own life. Which is also the problem, by the way. A lot of people aren't doing that. And that's why they listen to people like Candace Owens, in my opinion. It's why they fall for people like Alex Jones and stuff like that. So I think what I should be doing in my job as a podcaster and stuff like that is really just pointing at things and saying, go check this. What do you think? But here's what I noticed. This is what I wrote down. 3 steps. Step 1. This is Candace Owens' entire business model. Number 1. Wait for the official narrative to come out on the biggest cultural stories. That's step 1. What's step 2? Step 2 is say nah. Nope. That's it. Cast doubt. And then step 3, spend all time justifying the nah. And of course, receive millions of dollars in attention and brand deals and stuff like that, which she's doing. I really think it can be broken down into that. So this has happened so many times. So one of the things that Candace Owens is really talking about right now is the Charlie Kirk thing. There's other things like saying that she's being assassinated and stuff like that. If you listen to people talk enough, they'll tell on themselves. And the connection I'm wanting to make here is a few things with Joseph Smith. There are all these little tells. One of the things is what Joseph Smith did and what Candace Owens is doing. They're talking about things that are very difficult to verify. Joseph Smith, obviously nobody was going to verify if Jesus came to him. He was the source. Candace Owens does the same thing. Candace Owens, though, does it in a little bit slipperier way. One of the things that she does is there's no real, if Candace Owens was this truth crusader, as she's trying to portray herself to be, then what she would honestly do is she would go get stories and make stories and give it for others to verify. But that's not what she's doing. What is she doing? She's taking these great big cultural stories and then casting doubt on them and coming up with her own narrative. And that's another thing that Joseph Smith did all the time. When things happened, whether they were according to plan or not according to plan, well, especially when they didn't go according to plan, there was a lot of reframing and narrative shifting. Like, God said that we should do this bank and it's going to be a successful bank, but then the bank fails. So then what do? Well, you say things like, God talked to me and said that this is a test for the people. And there's almost like a validation like of the prophethood for doing the things that didn't go according to plan. It's a strange thing. Like Joseph Smith would literally have this way of being able to make people believe that he was more of a prophet after a failure, because he would talk about communicating directly to God and this is exactly what's going on. And he was really good at post-game analysis. And I see the same thing with Candace Owens. I was just looking at Twitter yesterday and there was somebody had pieced together her shifting of narrative. And that's something that we have benefit of in today's day and age that we didn't have during Joseph Smith's time to catch him in his lies. And that is just being able to see things very quickly and catch the shift in the story. And so that's what's happening. So that's the main thing I wanted to say with Candace is, and again, I want you to go check it. What it appears that she's doing is she's commenting on the biggest cultural stories just by taking a counter view to whatever the official narrative is. And here's the thing about official narratives on big stories. If something big is happening, there's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of people at play. And nobody owns reality. Nobody has. I don't own it. You don't own it. Candace doesn't own it. The American government doesn't own it. Not a single individual owns what is ultimately real. That's good and bad news. The good news is there isn't a single authority on it. But the bad news is people will stand up and claim that they did figure it out and they know it all. And as human beings, we are not just meaning-making machines, but we are driven for meaning and certainty. And Candace Owens, even though it looks like she's tearing things down and she's being a truth crusader and she's poking, she's actually providing some sense of certainty. She's providing some sense of certainty to her audience because it confirms the bias that we have this, what's the word? This suspicion that things are not exactly as people have said that they are. And of course they're not. They never are. The only thing that we have that is as close to truth to us as individuals is our own lived experience. That's why I want to get better at this. I don't want to tell people what to think. I want to say what I think and let you compare it. It actually reminds me of, I was just doing a philosophy class. Not a class, just like a meetup here in New York. And a lot of people are not wired this way. We're wired to beat each other over the head and say, no, I'm right. No, you're wrong. And I don't think that's helpful. Anyway, we were in this philosophy discussion. We were discussing the idea of argument, what argument means. And some people think argument is really just, basically hitting each other with logical clubs. But I don't think that's what it is. I think an argument, when you're giving an argument, is you're outlining a set of ideas that help people understand your conclusion so that they can also check to see if your reasoning is sound. Like that's what an argument is. And when it's going back and forth, with people in good faith, it's really, really beneficial for both parties. What was my point on this? Hold on. I'm going to leave all this in. What's my point with the argument thing? I don't remember. I don't know. But, I think my main point is just, I think it's very tricky what Candace is doing, where she's making very bold claims and making it look like that she's searching things. And by the way, she's not. And then she's putting it's like she's also making a mess and saying, no, it's not this. And she's forcing all these people to then come to her and verify why what she's saying isn't right. And that's not the way it works. Candace is doing the opposite of an argument, strangely. She is. Candace it sounds like she's making an argument, but she's not. She's making long-winded claims. And you don't have to take my word for it. I'm going to give you my argument for her lack of an argument. And check it out. And I think the other reason I'm saying this is what I'm trying to also do with my audience, which, by the way, my audience is the nicest audience. And all over the internet, like so many people, you guys, great comments, great conversation with each other here on YouTube, as well as Instagram and TikTok. You're the best people in the world. And I want to respect the people that watch my stuff, that are starting to find my content. And I don't want to, if anything, I want to take what I'm noticing in culture and give it to you to also engage and give your viewpoints of what you're seeing. But this is what I mean by Candace not having an argument. Joseph Smith didn't have an argument and instead just had very long-winded, persuasive claims, which is not the same thing. What an argument does is it gives you this detailed pathway of saying, this is how I'm arriving to this conclusion. Under Candace's model, muddying the water is helpful. She's just, she even uses the phrase, I'm just asking questions. If people are doubting, like if she gets nothing right, if she doesn't have a single clear argument for anything that's true, but if people are doubting the narrative or doubting what's going on and there's some debate and people are watching her because they're suspicious, she's won. She's won. And she's making millions of dollars this year over big stuff. Like she's really good at it. Okay. I think that's what I'm going to leave on the Candace Owens stuff. If there's more that you guys want me to talk about with the Candace Owens stuff, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your take, and I'd love a completely alternate take, by the way. If you're like, actually, she's got a point. I've been listening to her for a really long time, and I used to disagree with her, but this is why I agree with her now. Share that too. Because we learn through conversation. And yeah, so I'd just love your take as well. Okay. I wanted to share some of the biggest top stories of this year. Of course, there's the reason I'm even talking about Candace is the Charlie Kirk situation is insane. There's other stories like, of course, Trump got inaugurated. I was at the inauguration. There's like what's going on with his term. There's Israel-Palestine, which I want to touch on a little bit. I think I just want to give some one-off ideas that I think I haven't really shared on Cultured Boy yet. One of those ideas is when it comes to Trump, obviously he's a bombastic, crazy human being. Like one of the things that he just did what's the guy's name that just got killed and he just completely disrespected the guy. Something's going on that's crazy in Trump land. This is the point I want to make. I don't think Trump's going to be this. It's actually just so much up in the air. It's so much up in the air. But he does not have the same pull with his base that he used to because of things like the Epstein files. Because of stupid statements that he made, like bashing people that just died. But he also has things that I think are surprising with how he's managing deals internationally, especially with like the Gaza deal and stuff like that. But you just see this all over culture where Donald Trump used to have all of this pull, and now there's this fraction in the right. People that were all together against the left, that's not happening. You have a fractured right. And here's my thing with the right, with the fighting. I think it's actually good. I think it's good that Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens are fighting. Here's the most funny one, though. The biggest brawl right now, that I think is hilarious that it's actually happening is Candace Owens and Alex Jones. Candace Owens and Alex Jones disagreeing with each other. Now, that is so funny because Alex Jones is Alex Jones. He does similar things, except here's the difference. Here's the difference between Alex Jones and Candace Owens, in my opinion. We're not going to get into who's smarter and stuff like that. I think Alex Jones, while completely full of shit in a lot of things, the one thing you cannot argue if you watch enough of his stuff is he is completely sincere. He's completely sincere. He believes his bullshit. I don't know if Candace Owens believes her bullshit. And so Trump, I don't know if it's a Trump phenomenon that he's creating these factions within the right. It must be, but it's because of things that he's saying, this is what I'm going to do, and then he's going against it. What you're seeing is people's values being fractured. Some people are saying, I just am against this woke stuff, but then when children are involved, like possible pedophilia that it seems like is going on, at least allegedly, within elitist circles, then people are like, okay, I don't care what's going on. Like if somebody wants to get a transgender surgery, great, but we shouldn't like be covering up crimes against kids. And so it's just fascinating to watch, to see the camp within the right sort of like brawl it out. And I think it's great. But here's one thing that I think Trump is doing sneakily well. I don't know how he's doing it, but this year making I think the 20-point Gaza deal is probably one of the things that's going to be studied. It's going to be studied for decades. Not saying that Israel is, or certainly not Hamas either, and not Israel, are fully carrying out the plan, but my main point when it comes to Trump and the Gaza deal and a lot of other international deals is there's plenty to hate Trump on. There's very few people that I reserve this, my favorite word. Some people will say, what's your favorite word? Your favorite curse word? And it's been fuck for a long time. But my favorite curse word isn't fuck anymore. And I think, where did I get this? Either from Europeans or Australians. But my favorite curse word right now is cunt. Because it is a very specific, very few people can actually be categorized as a cunt in my book. And Trump, I think a lot of us can agree, whether you voted for him or not, can behave like a cunt. And what he has done with disrespecting people, even when they die, that is cunty. And yet, I think what is also difficult to argue is him bringing hostages home and creating this deal that all these countries were involved in was good for the world. Now, this breaks all of our brains because we don't know how to categorize things like that. But the truth is, this is life. Life is this. Life is this mix-up of different things where there are no good people and bad people. There are people and people do good things, and those same people do bad things. Like, that's actually the truth. Like, every single one of us have lied, cheated, stole, done something dumb. We want to be good people. We try to be good people, but we fuck up all the time. And I'm still confused by Trump. I don't know where this is going because I see stuff like that that's genuinely good, and then I see what he says about people when they die, and of course, there's the whole past that's being investigated, and then just all the stuff. It's, and then there are people that know him and have been with him and have done deals with him, The jury's out. And again, the thing I also find fascinating is even though he's done some legitimately great things, like when it comes to politics, you can have your side fucking murder a whole group of people or accidentally get a bunch of people killed, and you still don't stop loving them. And what I'm finding interesting in culture right now is Trump's done some legitimately good things. He's also done some problematic things, but there are people in the right that don't like him. I mean, look at the numbers. Look at his approval numbers. They're the worst right now, I think, than they've ever been. I don't have a Jamie, so can't fact check that. Not everybody is as rich as Joe Rogan. So, yeah, it's just been an interesting year politically, and I'm very curious to see where things go. It's been interesting with certainly politics. We got midterms coming up next year. Here in New York, we got Mom Donnie voted in. Tomorrow is his first day. He's having some block party that I got invited to. Got some text message on. I think I'm going to go. I'm going to see what it's like. Mom Donnie, man, that's going to be... I'm so curious about that through 2026. I think one of the things that surprises me the most about him, of course, there's the socialist stuff. And it's like, how's that going to work in New York City? There's legitimate criticisms. But one thing I noticed with Mom Donnie is there were people posting about Mom Donnie and opposition against Mom Donnie that live in Tel Aviv. Mom Donnie is a New York City mayor. He's a mayor. I don't know why somebody in Tel Aviv, and again, I can continue the thought track of like, well, if they're afraid of the rising anti-Semitism, which has been huge this year, then maybe he's going to make it worse for them. I don't know. But I just find that fascinating, too, that there were such big opinions about this guy over the entire world. And I don't think we know what's going to happen. I think there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, this has never worked and stuff like that, and that's super valid. The one thing that I will give Mom Donnie, and I actually talked about this on, I was interviewed by Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's company, right after Mom Donnie won the Democratic primary in July. And I had no idea it was Turning Point USA. I think the girl's name was Savannah or something like that. But I was just at Washington Square Park, and they interviewed me. And something that first of all, I credited him doing the same thing that Trump did to win. When Trump won, the reason Trump won is because he actually listened to his base and saw what they were concerned about, what their issues were, and he spoke to those issues. Same with Mom Donnie. He literally went around New York, and there wasn't any other candidate in New York that was getting to the bottom of things to actually see what people gave a fuck about and campaigned on that. So you got to give him that. But the main thing, too, that sort of Trumpian, but I think this is super refreshing, especially for the left. Mom Donnie seemed to be open to talk to his rivals. And thank God. Okay, hot take time. People are not going to like this. I'm just thinking, like, does this touch into the final hot take that I'm going to end the episode on? And I don't think it does. So I'm just going to say it. So I grew up in a cult, right? As I've said, as you know. That's why it's called Cultured Boy. And so being inside a cult, I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like. I see the reinforcements. And I'm just going to drop it. The left, over the last few years, has been the biggest cult in politics. Of all politics, the left has been the most culty. Now, you're going to be like, no way! Are you insane, Calvin? The MAGA cult, the MAGA cult, the MAGA cult. Hey, I'm agreeing with you. The MAGA, like the super MAGA, the people that stormed the Capitol, which, by the way, I have literal family that stormed the Capitol because I'm from a small town in Utah, and as soon as it was happening, I was sitting in a coffee shop, and I just watched the news break on CNN, and I was like, God damn, this is insane. Those fucking idiots. And there were literally people in this coffee shop that showed me their phone. And while I'm saying this is fucking insane, people are like, look what's going on in DC. This is awesome. That was their reaction. So I've lived in both worlds. And I had a cousin that changed his profile picture on Facebook that day to him climbing the fucking wall. So I get that. That is also culty. However, the left has been the biggest cult in all of politics. At least in America. Now, of course, the UK is being fucking insane right now, thinking that they are the morality police. And it's literally 1984 in the UK right now, where somebody's like, oh, you had an idea that you put into letters and posted on social media. You are a bad person. You're going to make the world bad. We're going to take you to court and we're going to put you in jail for a fucking social media post. It's happening so much that it's wild. That's culty. But this is why the left is culty. And I say this as somebody that, well, I'm politically homeless, but I love progress. I love what the left historically has stood for. But one of the things that happens within a cult, people think that it's just about the person at the top controlling things. And you're like, who's the cult leader within the left? There's no cult. What are you talking about? It's actually not the leader at the top in cults that makes it work. It's the reinforcements that make it work. And on the left, you could not have any ideas in the last few years that sounded different from the correct viewpoint. You couldn't allow bad viewpoints. And you see it all the time. You can just go watch the news from 2020 to 2025 where they're saying, why would you platform that person? Like, that's one of the reasons, the biggest slip of Kamala Harris's campaign. That's why they didn't go to Joe Rogan and stuff like that. Like, they didn't do it. They talk about it as logistical things and stuff like that. But a part they don't talk about is they were afraid of being on the wrong show or being on the wrong platform because that was a big part of it. And that just doesn't work. And so this whole thing of you can't have a viewpoint that is different from this correct doctrine that is not even religious, by the way. But it's still culty because cultiness has nothing to do with religion is also one of my viewpoints. It literally doesn't. It has to do with a worldview. And so the thing that is refreshing about Mamdani is he has talked to people of all political spectrum. And I think the left needs that. They just need the principle of it if they're going to make progress going into 2026 and beyond. You can't, like, it's just so hubristic. And I say this as somebody that, like, I know what it feels like to be so right on something. Like, there has been so much insufferable viewpoints in culture over the last few years. Like, this is the right way. Like, the whole fucking pronoun thing. Again, be whatever pronoun you want. That's great. But the whole enforcement of it, that was insane. Because what that's doing is it's saying, this is the right way. This is how to do it. And I'm going to make you do it. That's not cool. That's not cool. Like, we get to evolve and choose and decide, and we have a variety of human beings of all shapes and sizes on different religious spectrums and stuff like that. And there needs to be a sense of belonging where we can be where we want to be, where we're at in our own progress, or our own process. And that hasn't been there. And so that's the thing I'm really curious about, to see how things move. Now, some people are saying, no, this guy's a freaking, I don't know, anti-Semitic, whatever. We'll see. But I think it's directionally correct. I really do, from where the left has been, where he was open to having multiple discussions with different kinds of people. And we need that. We need to have a conversation if we're going to get anywhere. Anyway, we're wading through political stuff now. So I'd love to hear, again, your thoughts with anything I've said so far with Candace Owens, with Trump, with Mamdani. Okay, I have to talk about somebody else because I don't think I've shared it, and I just want to put myself on air saying it. It's kind of hot takey. It's who I'm going to share, who I think is the slimiest politician. Yeah, I'm going to share it. I'm going to share, putting it on record. Yeah, I'm going to put on record who I believe is the slimiest U.S. politician, and why we even have people like this person, and why we have anybody like this. Because this has to shift, and I don't think it's going to shift in 2026, but I hope it shifts in the next 10 years, because we need it to shift so badly with what we use politicians for as people. The slimiest politician in all of U.S. politicians right now is Gavin Newsom. And I'll give you my argument. You can disagree, and I can see why you would disagree. A lot of people like him because he's talking tough against Trump and he's saying blah, 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 blah. No, he's shifting too much. If you have any memory at all and you decide to go back and to see what people believe and what they stand for, he's shape-shifty as fuck. And that bothers me. For me personally, I just don't like the shape-shiftiness. I would rather, I'm not saying don't change your mind and evolve, but he doesn't look like he's changing his mind and evolving. It sounds like that he's seeing what people give a fuck about and he's just changing so he can get votes. That's what it feels like. That's my take. But why do we have people like him? And I know that there are going to be people that hear that and they're going to be so pissed. Like, I pissed off so many people with talking about any of these politicians. And by the way, I'm not attached to any of these motherfuckers. I am politically homeless. I will listen to anybody tell me why Trump is a cunt and why he's the best thing for America. I will listen to why Gavin Newsom is the greatest thing to ever happen to California. I'm open to that. I think the homeless population might think differently, but I would be open to it. But I'll share why I think we have him and why we were almost going to have somebody as like Kamala. I think why we have Trump. Politicians right now in America are essentially our emotional support animals. So this is sort of even talking back with my point of why I think Mamdani won. Because I think it's the same thing. I think politicians are getting really good, and you can figure it out really quickly by talking to people, yes, but also just watching TikTok or social media. You can get really quick at figuring out what people give a fuck about. And you could even chat GPT it, what people care about. Like, what are the biggest issues people are concerned about right now? And then just customize your entire campaign, validating those emotions. And I believe if you look for the people that like Gavin Newsom, feel free to check me on this. But what it seems like from what I'm noticing is the people that like Gavin is he is saying things right now that are validating feelings that you have. He's not necessarily a leader that's getting shit done. He's talking big against Trump and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't like it. I think you got to have some sense of like, this is who I am. This is what I believe. This is where we're going. This is how we're going to change things. This is like, I care about people. This is how we're going to make life better. And yeah. Okay. So to sort of like transition now, not completely out of politics, because this has become a big culture issue for 2025. Israel, Palestine. We're just doing all the light topics today, aren't we? Candace Owens being like a cult member like Joseph Smith, and Donald Trump, and Gavin being a cult member. Okay. Israel, Palestine. All of last year, I, like everybody, was seeing everything pop up. Everybody have some opinion on Israel and Palestine. October 7th had happened in 2023, and I'm like, that's insane. It was being called the 9/11 for Israel. And it was genuinely horrible, what I was seeing pop up on socials. But then I started to get really, really, really confused around the entire Israel-Palestine story. Because I was seeing all this horrible bloodshed that happened. And then I was noticing all of this massive pushback against Israel. And I'm like, why are we not supporting these guys? That's wild. They had this horrible thing happen. And then I dig into it a little bit, and at the very surface, it's just like, this is just anti-Semitism. I'm like, oh, that's shitty. Why are we being anti-Semitic? Good God, it's 2025. Like, why are we treating people like this? And so I was just very curious about it. And then it got even more confusing to me because I have a lot of Jewish friends. I've spent time in Israel years ago. And I also have some friends that are Palestinian, or at least is like of the Islamic faith, and therefore a lot more sympathetic to the Palestinian side. So I had good people, genuinely good human beings that I knew on both sides of the issue. So I was like, what's going on? And I didn't know where to get information from. So in January this year, I did what the jury's still out if this was it certainly wasn't a fiscally responsible thing to do, because my financial situation is like so shitty because of this. But I quit my day job and decided to go to the Middle East and talk, and with the attempt to try to talk to real Israelis and real Palestinians. And I did. So yeah, went to Israel, and I learned a ton. It added a lot of color and gradient and nuance to this entire thing. And I've been researching this, having one-on-one conversations with both Israelis and Palestinians all year. And I'm just going to say what I genuinely feel about this. I actually tweeted about it, so I'm going to read it right here. Because I don't have a full solution. I don't think anybody does. I don't think anybody fully knows what the answer is. Actually, before I do, I should probably pull back on this and give my take. I'm still learning. But my views have shifted a ton. Because, I think I'm just going to say it. I'm going to go on record. Because I have friends that here in New York Some of my best friends are Jewish, and I have friends that live in Israel. But I'm seeing things in the Israeli government that is genuinely culty to me. It looks culty. And in some ways, I even think that there are things that the Israeli government is doing, not just against Palestinians. Here's the big thing that I haven't said publicly that I want to... Again, I probably need to write out an entire paper just to outline it because it's such a big thing to say, but I'm just going to say it. There are things that the Israeli government seems to be doing that I think isn't just against Palestinians. I think it's against their own people, especially when it comes to narrative and pushing things. They say they want peace, and there's a lot of things going on that doesn't look like that peace is really the goal. And so, the other thing, though, too, is there are so many conversations that just aren't happening. There are not real, genuine Israelis talking to Palestinians to work this out. Like, that blew my mind. When I was over there, I was going to places... And I didn't even go to a ton yet, but I was going to places that neither side had done. Like a Palestinian hadn't gone in here and an Israeli hasn't gone in there. It's like, well, how are you going to solve a conflict without actually talking about it? And this is an ongoing thing. But the thing that I just want to say publicly, and again, this is not to say that there isn't shit that Palestinians have done to Israelis, and certainly what Hamas did on October 7th. That was insane. But it is not a black and white thing to me, like I think I was looking for. Well, I don't think anything's black and white, but it's not. The answer is not as obvious as people like to make it sound out to be. I don't think that the reason Israel is having so much trouble right now is just because the world is anti-Semitic. I think there is legitimate pain and suffering, misguided or best intended, that Israel as a government, again, not saying Jewish people in general, but Israel as a government has inflicted on genuine, innocent people. And that is a hard thing. I know. That is a hard thing for Jewish people everywhere to hear, because they don't think that there are innocent. Many of them, some do, but many of them don't think that there are such a thing as innocent people that are being killed. And that's really sad to me. And I don't know why, but the reason I bring this up on this last episode is this has captured my attention. I'm not Israeli. I'm not Palestinian. But I made this documentary and everything on it, and it's just like, this is one of the things that for us to move forward, what are we going to do? Just throw our hands in the air? Like, this has just been going on forever. Bull fucking shit. That's such a cop-out. This has to be talked about. We have the best minds, a lot of empathy, and a lot of understanding scientifically and everything else that we haven't had. And we have it now that we can do to figure out what this is. And some people say, it's just here, we just got to do this. And we tried to give him that. No, I think we need to go deeper. We need to actually have conversation, actually. And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm sort of like stepping into the water, so to speak. Because I know damn good and well that I'm going to have people that disagree with me, whatever I say. But there's a tremendous lack of not just listening. There's a tremendous lack of listening on both sides of this conflict, but there's also a tremendous lack of, I think, genuine honesty on both sides. You look all online, a lot of Israelis will say that the reason this is going on is because they're just anti-Semitic. They're against us just because we're Jewish. They're against us just because we're Jewish. Oh, is that so? That's what I believed for all of this past year. Well, not this whole year, but like leading up to that, I believed that. Until I had conversation with actual Palestinians. That's not what they said. A lot of people will tell you about themselves by what they project. And I do believe that, now there is no question. Here's one thing I'll say, because I'm going to say something big here. There is no question that on the Palestinian side, especially if you're living in Gaza, they're like, well, hey, Dad, Mom, why don't we have a home? Why did our cousin die? Because of the Jews. Like, understandable, right? You're going to grow up telling your kid, yeah, these motherfuckers killed our grandfather, killed your cousin. And so you're going to have propaganda against Jews, right? But a couple of things I want to say here. I have had, again, a lot of conversation this year. I've watched a lot of content, and something that I don't even know a lot of Jewish people even know. And maybe they do. I think a lot of them do, but they don't want to talk about it. There is so much propaganda, if we want to use the same terminology, against Palestinians and Islam. Just for the fact that they're Palestinian and Islam. Like saying that, like telling Jewish people, hey, they hate you because you're Jewish. They hate you because you're Jewish. They hate you because you're Jewish. I'll tell you a quick story. I'm going to give you what you're not supposed to do. I'm going to give you the punchline of my film, Hearts Unknown, when I went to Israel. You can watch it if you want. I'll talk about it at the end of the episode. I was talking to this Palestinian in Jerusalem, and I asked what he wanted. I was like, what do you want? Like deep down. What do you want? What do you need? And he said he wanted to end the occupation, right? He wanted the occupation to end. Wanted their land back. And there was something in me that was like, I was just thinking about that, and I was like, end the occupation, end the occupation. That wasn't my question. That wasn't my question exactly. Because ending the occupation, to me, sounds like a solution to what you're actually needing. And that's what I want to know. Like, what's the need? Like, what do you feel like you actually need? And he got emotional. I was not expecting this from and I was so terrified to even talk to this guy, because I had talked to so many Israelis and Jewish people leading up to this, and they were like, you should be afraid. You should be afraid. Like, be careful, be careful, be careful. And I probably still need to be smart, but I was afraid to talk to him. And when I talked to him, I was like, this is so incredibly normal. But here's the thing he said. I was like, you say occupation. You want to end the occupation, but what? That sounds like a solution to what you're actually wanting. What are you actually wanting? He gets emotional, and he says, what I need is I want for the Jewish people, the Israeli people, to look me in my eyes and see that I am human. That was true for him. I saw it. Now, something that I think a lot of Jewish people can relate to is not being seen as human. Being seen as lesser. And why? For whatever reason. Because it's your religion. One of the reasons I think I really care about this, besides the fact that I grew up in such a big fucking family and I dealt with conflict all the time, just interpersonally with a variety of different personalities, I don't think we're disconnected like we all think we are. There are literal blood relatives between Jewish people and Palestinians. We're like siblings on this planet. We're related. And when I think about it on that level, it's like, that's crazy. But I really think there are things that we do to separate ourselves from other people by calling them names, by saying they are this way. Their religion does this. Here's another hot take that I should do a whole deep dive on this, and I'm willing to debate it and have a conversation with it with anything, with anybody. People are human before they are religious. And when they feel threatened, they use everything they can to gain an advantage. And oftentimes the last line of defense that any of us have is our worldview and our faith. And so what we see as Palestinians or Islam doing these things, they're like, oh, their religion made them do that. I don't think their religion made them do it. I used to think that. I don't think that right now. In this moment, going into 2026, I don't think that's the core. I think there are other triggers. And I'm not doing this to cast blame on anybody, by the way. I'm doing this because this isn't working for anybody. Is it? Like, if you're Jewish right now, is this something you want? Like, again, I had several one-on-one conversations there, but also through Zoom calls here in New York City with people of on all sides of this issue. I've been to protests on all sides. I've talked to Orthodox people. I've been to synagogues. I've been to mosques, all that stuff. And I heard some very offensive things on all sides. But there are some offensive things. Like, I can come in, if I were to come into this and say that I talked to a Palestinian and they say they just wish all Jews died, then that would be horrible. That'd be an anti-Semitic trope. It would also just confirm a lot of things that Jewish people say already. It's like, yeah, that happens all the time. But here's something that a lot of Jewish people don't like to hear. That same thing is happening big time in reverse, where a lot of Jewish people are just wanting Palestinians all dead. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos online of Israeli kids saying that. And I've had an uncomfortable amount of conversations with everybody from civilians to IDF soldiers wanting to wipe Gaza and every living thing in there off the face of the earth. That's just reality. Like, that's just happened. And I understand on some level why anybody would say that, because they feel like there's a target on their back. These people want to kill them. They just want to kill us because we're Jewish, blah, 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 blah. But here's the bottom line. The bottom line is we're not going to solve a goddamn thing unless we're willing to get to the bottom of it. If we're willing, not just say, oh, you did this. We can't speak for other people. The only thing we can speak for is ourselves. And this is actually the thing I was going to end on with this topic. Because I still have so much. I want to go back there. I want to talk to more people in Israel. I actually just had a friend reach out to me today saying like, yo, welcome to come back to North Israel. I want to do that. I want to spend time in Lebanon. I want to spend time in West Bank and stuff like that. But my takeaway after this entire year is I don't know what the solution to the Israel-Palestine conflict is. I don't think anyone does, despite the spirited viewpoints on all sides. But I do know this. It will not and cannot be resolved without painful, never before seen, courageous honesty from both Israelis and Palestinians. That's what I honestly feel. I don't think people are being as I look forward to it, honestly. And if I can even facilitate some of the conversations between Israelis and Palestinians, because there's a lot of people talking about a lot of others. There's a lot of Israelis talking about Palestinians when they haven't had a fucking sit down in their goddamn life. And they're willing to say, well, look at surveys. Look at this. Again, this is why it feels cold to me, because they're just repeating the same propaganda of their own government. It's not a human learning. Like, as an American, having more conversations with a Palestinian than... like, that shouldn't be that way. If the goal is to actually solve it, like, I get not wanting to talk to me that wants to kill you. I get that. But if you're somebody in military or government or somebody else and you're saying we actually are trying to solve this in a way that is good for everybody, I shouldn't be somebody that's the one talking to them more. But I'm happy to be. I want to be. I want to be somebody that can actually help bridge in the world of walls. I want to be a bridge if I can. And again, there is no real solution on this. I would love to hear any takes one way or the other, whether you're Israeli or Palestinian. The thing that is... Here's the thing I want to say, because I think it's very important to say. When I went to Israel, I saw so much pain on the Israeli side that I don't think the world knows about. I really don't. Like, not actually. There is so much genuine suffering happening within the borders of Israel. Within families, within individuals, like conflicts within people, unresolved pain and trauma. It's real. And of course, we all see the pain and trauma that's going on and has gone on this entire year within Gaza and stuff like that. But man, if we're setting New Year's resolutions, that's one thing I would set. I don't think, like, if we can get a giant step closer to men and women and children on the Israeli side, being able to have conversation with men, women, and children on the Palestinian side, I think that would benefit everybody. Not because you're trying to be good, because you're trying to live. We're trying to make tomorrow and the next year and the next 5 years better for everybody, for our own kids. And again, there's a lot of honesty and deep conversations that needs to be had, that I don't think is being had yet. And I just hope to see it. And if I can play a role in helping those conversations take place, I'd love to. I think it'd be an honor. As not because I'm better, I'm like a little brother, I feel like, to this whole thing. I'm like humanity or culture's little brother. Like, just being able to say, no, like, this is what I'm seeing, and I think that's dumb or that's good, and just trying to bring people together in a way that is good for everyone. Like, I really think hummus and bagels can do more than bombs. I just do. And if we're living in the world where we're going to have AI taking over everything and the world's about to shift, I think it would not hurt for we humans to be on the same goddamn page and at least be at the same table of humanity of, like, what are we doing? Okay. All right. I don't want to end on something so heavy. I wanted to just talk about a few fun things this year. This year's been wild for me. I'm actually gonna just record this at the end of the episode. Actually, I'm gonna do my hot take that I was gonna say at the end, and then I'll share something super personal. And I'm also just trying to stall so that the only people that are gonna hear my personal thing are the ones that are the most diehards, that watch the show, listen to the show. Because it's sort of an embarrassing thing, but it's true. Here was my hot take I was gonna say that I haven't shared. When I left the religion I was born into, which was just a few years ago, again, I was conditioned in it my entire life. I was like, this is not true. Like, why'd I leave it? Because it wasn't true. That was my ultimate conclusion, and that was a gut feel. And I will never, ever be able to fully communicate how terrifying not only the conclusion was of what it was pointing to, because it, goddamn, like it is so world altering, because I knew what that meant. Especially the way I was raised. Once you doubt something like that, it would alter relationships, and it altered my relationships way more than I ever thought it would. 99% of my relationships, my closest relationships, became estranged overnight. And we are social beings. We need people. We need each other. And it was painful, but one of the things that I was looking forward to is getting to be myself, which I've gotten to be, which is going to be the positive thing I end on. But one of the other things, too, that is now, I think, sort of surprising, because it was a short-sighted belief that I didn't realize was short-sighted at the time, is I was excited to get out of cultiness and enter truth and enter the real world of truth. And here's my conclusion on cultiness now. That may be surprising, may not be surprising. Here's the sentence that will surprise some and won't surprise others. But the second sentence, I don't think anybody has ever said publicly. Cults are way more prevalent than anybody realizes. In fact, cults are the default. I've lived nearly 4 decades to come to this conclusion. Cults are the default. I believe that every single person alive today, all 8 billion people, all 8 billion people have been in a cult, at least one cult in their lifetime. And if you don't think that's true, maybe you're still in one. I think they're everywhere. I've talked about some of the biggest ones, the ones in culture and stuff like that. I want to get better at being able to communicate this, because it's a fucking difficult thing to talk about for me. I was just reading on something like how there's this whole, what's it called? There's like some, it's not a complex, but it's like, there's like this lady that said something in the past. There's like the Cassandra effect. I think that's what it is. But the Cassandra effect essentially is like, you are not rewarded for spotting things early. In fact, it's very punishing to spot things early. And I know what that feels like, because when I spotted that I was in a cult, it pissed a lot of people off. And I feel like I'm in this strange place right now as somebody that has the goggles of being able to spot cultiness, that when I say it to people, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to say, hey, you're probably in a cult. And so I want to get better at trying to explain it in a way, because I don't think it's anybody's fault. I think to be culty is to be human, to where we limit what we look at. We don't let ideas in that we need to let in that could help us move forward. Like, the truth will set you free, but it's going to fucking, it's going to burn like a motherfucker as it does. And I think it's one of the things that are holding us back is our cultiness. Not being open to other ideas And I also think that it could be the unlock for the age that we're moving in with AI. We need more individuals in the world and not people that are just being so tied into one particular dogma. And I mean, being connected to your value set and your dogma is one thing, but just discounting other people when the world is as big as it is, I don't think it's healthy. So again, I've written a lot about this personally. I have a lot of notes on it. I would love to hear anybody's thoughts on it, honestly. But yeah, I think every single person alive today has been a part of a cult. And if you don't think you are, or think you have, you probably are in one now. At least one. Some people are layered with them. And I think one of the reasons we don't realize it is because we think it's just religious, and I don't think it is. I think it's worldview. It's worldview. And there are some worldviews that are religious, but also bigger, like country-based. Like, this is the worldview. This is how it is. And if somebody thinks somebody different, like, we attack it. Or it's institutional. It's educational. Certainly political. But it's human. And I think we need to be aware of it so that we can be more productive in our conversations with people in different bubbles. All right. Yeah. What's my favorite thing for the year of 2025? That's what I want to end on. I've been scaring the fuck out of myself. And these have been things that have really helped because, again, I quit my day job in January to do Cultured Boy and stuff like that, and to do the film Hearts Unknown in the Middle East. But one of my favorite things that I just want to share is I've had a few things that have come to me as like surprises that I enjoy. And one of them is dancing. In my upbringing, dancing was forbidden because it was too worldly. Besides, white boys can't dance. Dancing was forbidden. And just walking through the city here in New York, by the way, sorry if you can hear the siren, but that's how you know this is real. Just walking through the city dancing, it feels so good. It feels so good just to listen to music and dance. And one of the other things I've gotten into within the last couple of months is parkour. Like, this is something that, where did this come from? Like, I'm just going through the city wanting to jump on things, jump off of things. It's so fun. It's so fun. And let me show you my Christmas gift. It's right here. This is a Christmas gift I got to myself. It's Minecraft. Kind of. This is a skateboard. Minecraft skateboard. Which, by the way, the one thing I didn't show on this episode, you just go Google it, is this tray flip of El Toro that happened, the skateboard trick, off this fucking massive step that some dude named Chris did this year. It's insane. I've never had a skateboard in my life. I just got on the skateboard. I got on a skateboard for the first time. For the first fucking time. On Christmas. And last night I'm like just here in my apartment, like balancing on the board and stuff like that. I'm so excited. Because it's, I don't know. I'm finding as I'm like the leaving a cult is not just like, oh, I'm in this and now everything's good. It has been such a long process, which if you watch any of my other episodes with other ex-cult members, it is such a process. And because you're examining not just the cult itself, but you're examining yourself ultimately. And you're wondering why you believed certain things and why you took a hold of certain things. But now that it's been several years, one of the things that I'm just celebrating here at the end of 2025 is as I've peeled off certain layers, I'm starting to find these natural tendencies and urges that have just been buried. And it's so exciting. And it makes me wonder what else could possibly be there. Dance is one, parkour is one. And what the fuck? I'm curious about skateboards. I've never been, like, I have a list of all these things I want to do. that I've had for a while, like my dreams. Many of them I've ticked off, but I have something in my iPhone notes called Before I Die. And it has every single thing I want to do, like successes, experiences, hot air balloon, jumping off of a bridge to like bungee jump, making X amount of money, and different things that I want to do. I never had skateboarding on it. I don't think like there's just these things. I didn't have parkour on it. But it's coming as I'm like peeling off layers that aren't me, and things are just naturally emerging. And I don't really have a takeaway there, but maybe you have some of those things too, that if you examine, like take things off, like good things come. Okay. I did say there was something I was going to share at the very end here. I've been stalling, but I'll share it. The other thing that I just want to share and document to myself is I don't know how I'm paying rent tomorrow. Tomorrow is January. I love New York City. It's the very best fucking thing that I have done for my mental health, my emotional health, my soul's evolution. I love everything about it here. And just to document, so I have this for the future, because I want Culture Board to work and stuff like that, but I just want it to be here. I have made $0 in all of 2025. I've made no income, essentially. I've made some money on YouTube and stuff like that. I've just been living off of savings and a whole lot of credit cards. And now even the credit cards are running out, and I got to figure something out. I got to sell something. Got to get into sales. I got to do more episodes of Culture Board. Like, best case scenario, I have Culture Board that's working in 2026. But I've also done so many. I'm not going to get into this too much, but I'll just share some. Like, I have so many things, like creative things that have also come up this year that I'm just so freaking wanting to put out into the world that I can't yet until I get the money piece figured out. But again, I just wanted to share that to document to myself on this episode at the end of the year that I am quite literally in the tightest and most not healthy financial position I've ever been in my life. And I'm curious to see how I break out of it, because it has to at some point. It has to. I've been doing this all year since I quit my day job, and there's got to be a bottom. And once the bottom hits and it starts to go up, I'll be really. I look forward to that. Okay, that's it. So, yeah, I just want to say, Happy New Year, and I hope you had a good 2025, and hope you got something out of this. And I'm just really looking forward to what we do in 2026. So thanks. I'll see you. Before you leave, I just want to say thank you so much for watching, for listening. If this is your 5th time or your 15th or your 1st, I'm super grateful. And I also did a film, Hearts Unknown, where I went to the Middle East earlier this year. And so if you want to check that out, I'll link that somewhere at the end of this video. And please please blah, blah, blah. I'm going to get this in because why not? I'm going to let this in. What was I going to say? I forgot. See, I'm going to leave all this in because this is just what real life is. But please please subscribe, because this is my dream. This is my goal. And I don't want to get kicked out of my apartment. So if you just like and subscribe and this gets views and stuff like that, then the algorithm says, yes, we should show more of this. And then more people come and see. And we have a big fat party. So thank you for, being here, listening, and all that stuff. And please let me know your favorite part of this episode in the comments below. Let's talk, let's engage. That's where the real party is, in the comments. So thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next episode. And you know what they say. See you next year.